There's this issue that we have. Government has insisted really on the issue of a constitutional amendment. And, it appears that from the look of things, government is giving us a leeway, or is it a roadmap as to how they intend that we come up with a constitution or to amend the constitutional provisions. However, I've always maintained the thought that what government is doing is to create a government-driven constitutional amendment process, and not one that is driven by the people. But remember, the legitimacy of any constitution requires that the people need to have an input in this process. And my take really is, I think we may have a misplaced government in place where they want to drive the process instead of letting the people have an input. For me, I feel it's not really going to have the legitimacy that is required. Because, if government is going to drive the process, therein lies a problem. There are provisions, for example, where government has provided that they want to delimit. They want, proportional representation, and many other provisions. Now, the question is, which the Zambian people should really be asking, We should be asking ourselves these questions. Why is it that government is giving us questions or provisions that they feel are supposed to be amended? Who told them? Because remember, the Constitution, we give ourselves the Constitution. The preamble of the Constitution says, we the people. We the people, So which people have given this government those questions to say there are lacunas here, or perhaps these provisions require refining? I think for me, I'm beginning to feel like, of course, government may have made up its mind already. Even this structure where they've given us to say, we'll go and consult here and there. I feel it's a foregone issue. They've made up their minds. We've seen a systematic increase of their seats or their strength in the National Assembly. I think it's important that we should not be taken for granted as the people. We need to really put in our efforts and our inputs into this in this process. Someone comes to you and tells you, we need to delimit constituencies. Do they even understand what it means to delimit a constituency? Because currently, I will tell you that from what I've heard, people discuss or debate on the issue of delimitation. It's clear that people don't even understand what is contained in Article 58 of the Constitution, because Article 58, for example, has provided for delimitation of wards, districts, constituencies, and all. So the process of delimitation, it talks about delimiting boundaries within 10 years. Now, we've got 156 constituencies. From the 156 constituencies, my take is that if government is going to give an excuse that the reason why we want to divide or delimit these constituencies is because we want to look at equitable distribution of resources. But the reality is CDF is actually managed by National Assembly. So if the National Assembly, it's a matter of policy, in terms of distribution. Today, the policy of government is that they will distribute 36 million to each constituency. But now the question is, if you want to look at equitable distribution, can't you look at the sizes? You look at the size of the constituency and agree to say, okay, and the population dynamics, yes. To say, okay, in this constituency, instead of putting 36 million, in this one we'll put 50 million. This one has got more need, we'll put 70 million. So that way we know that you can actually just look at the sizes and distribute CDF. So that is neither here nor there. Because that issue of delimiting boundaries simply means that could change our boundaries, For example, if material is going to start from Muchinga, is it Muchinga 10 off? Or Chingwere 10 off?
From Chingwere Junction.
And then there comes, is it Katuba? If you want to look at delimiting that, you can say, okay, instead of it starting from that junction, it goes to Lumumba Road. You get it? So that is what the Constitution says. So I don't know why we've got colleagues misrepresenting the Zambian people. I mean, it's really disappointing that we can get to this level, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. But you see, then very fortunately that you're also a lawyer, and it's good to just get that into perspective. They're giving these reasons which are not genuine. You know, I personally have been opposed to this constitutional amendment for the simple fact that I think it's a very, very unholy process to begin with. It's a process that we must not even be having. This is a conversation that should have ended at the president announcing that he had agreed with whoever in courts, and when people reacted that we have not agreed, he should have been mature enough to have dropped that subject, because like you have said, the Constitution prescribes how it should be amended. It describes its own process of amendment, and it is not for one man with a few of his individual friends, you know, deciding that the Constitution should be amended and they go ahead to amend it. I think that it's a process that should have been dropped, but I've seen that they have continued to pursue this particular unholy path. And if I've learned anything about President Hakainde Hichilema and his UPND government, the past 4 years that they've been, in government, is that they will do what they want to do. They will come to the people. All the so-called consultations are highly cosmetic. You can see them. Even a child can see that these so-called consultations are cosmetic consultations. This guy has made up his mind that he's going to amend the Constitution. So then the question really that begs an immediate answer is, what are we to do as the people? Because we, the people, are supposed to give ourselves the Constitution. But it appears that one man with a few individuals has usurped the power that we hold, to be able to give ourselves this Constitution, and has taken it upon himself or themselves as a small group of people to want to give us a Constitution that we do not want. I mean, if the majority of Zambians have said that, look, you have so many issues on your plate that you should rather be fixing. You came into government on the pretext that you're a fixer. And as we all know what fixers are people who deal with problems, who deal with situations and ensure that those situations exist no more. All we have seen is an escalation of nearly each and every issue that has happened. Issues of the cost of living, the very poor economy, issues of shrinking democratic space, and all of that. So having seen all of this, really, I'm wondering if we as young people are doing enough to stop this process. Because you see, these guys, most of them, they are older people. Some of them are in the afternoons of their lives. They may not even be here the time that these decisions they want to make for us will matter the most. We will have to bear the consequences. Our children will have to bear the consequences. And then posterity also will come and ask us questions of what did we do at a time that we needed to have acted somehow. Because like you have said, the process of delimitation is one of those issues that they have highlighted in their roadmap as being the basis upon which they want to amend the Constitution. You have ably explained that. There's also issues of proportional representation, which some of us, despite being laymen in issues of law, we all understand that these are issues that are already covered in the current Constitution. The president already has got power to appoint young people to his cabinet, to appoint people living with disabilities to his cabinet, appoint women equally. But he has made a choice that those are not people he wants to associate with at that high table of decision-making that's called cabinet. So you can see the insincerity in all of these things, They're deliberately picking out, cherry-picking issues that they understand very well how emotional we are as Zambians towards those matters. He knows how emotional Zambians are when it comes to issues of proportional representation. He knows how emotional we are when it comes to issues of delimitation, because even now we have colleagues sitting as members of parliament who complain about the vastness of their constituencies and how they would, love to see them become smaller in order for them to equitably, to save quite fairly. But then all of these things, for me, really, it just screams insincerity.
Yeah, well, of course, you know, the issue of, that's why I get perplexed, you know. I think we're dealing with colleagues who really do not understand what they're doing.
Exactly.
They may not even understand most of these legal issues, you know. For example, when we talk about proportional representation, and for me, I speak to this topic because in 2014, I actually wrote a dissertation in which I proposed, when I was doing my LLB, in which I proposed that the best electoral system in Zambia would actually be proportional representation.
Yeah.
However, the way our colleagues want to explain this is a wrong way of going about it, you know.
Yeah.
Remember, this is a complex electoral system. So proportional representation as an electoral system is a bit complex.
Yeah.
What proportional representation would mean is you can agree as a nation to adopt either a party list system or a quota system.
Yeah.
But in this case, they're talking about a quota system.
Yeah.
However, if you have to look at proportional representation, this electoral system, for example, of course, it's a good electoral system. It allows you to have the minority into the National Assembly.
Yeah.
Even parties with one member of parliament can actually find themselves that their leader, in fact, is in the National Assembly.
Exactly.
However, it's too complex that you will not manage to explain to the Zambian people in a short space of 9 months. Because remember, we are only left with about 9 to 10 months to the next election. Because the election period starts, is it in March or May?
Yeah.
When National Assembly is dissolved. So I don't think what we are seeing today has got any ounce of genuineness. What the state should have done, perhaps, is to come up with a formality, a structure as to how they intend to implement this proportional representation.
Exactly.
Then we need to be able to speak to that before we could look at amending the constitution.
Yeah.
So that is where the consultation should begin from, where those of us that are stakeholders in this process, everyone should be able to give an input to say, okay, if you want to come up with with an electoral system such as proportional representation in this manner, this is what you ought to do. If we are going to use a party list system, or perhaps we are going to indicate that going forward, instead of electing a president, we'll be electing National Assembly members of parliament.
Exactly.
And then the National Assembly members of parliament will come and elect the president. Yeah. So these are issues which the Zambian people will need to really be told.
Exactly.
So I think there's no genuineness in this process. Of course, the reality is, when you look at the popularity of the gentleman in State House, the president, he's not as popular as he thinks he may have been. Exactly. I've always maintained a stance that President Hakainde was never a popular president.
Never been. Yeah.
For me, my stance has always been that he was a president of convenience.
Exactly.
The Zambian people actually voted for him because they felt they were tired with the PF.
Exactly.
And historically, actually, you know, Zambians have not really, they've never really voted for a president, huh?
No.
But they've voted out presidents.
Yeah.
So there's always been this protest. From 1991, you look at what happened in 2011.
Exactly.
So look at what happened in 2021. Yeah. So all these have been protest votes. Where
even in 1964, our forefathers wanted to remove them.
So even in 1964, you're right.
Yeah.
So really, this edge by the president to try and cement authority, I think it's a dangerous path. For me, I believe if we can look at history, what I've seen in history is that those that have sought to cement authority in this manner have always ended up in places where they find themselves losing elections terribly. And that is the path I think I'm foreseeing this president achieving, where there will be a serious loss of an election. Exactly. But again, you see, we must also look at issues of integrity and also just patriotism, you know.
Exactly.
For me, I believe a right leader is one who will have a lot of integrity. Integrity will entail that you do the right thing even when no one is watching. But in this case, we've got a leadership which has decided to come up with constitutional provisions that have to be amended without being transparent, you know. We needed to know who did they consult for them to say these provisions require refining. For example, someone was telling me that no, there's a provision to do with is it an election petition that we need to amend so that we put certainty and and put certainty to it. And then I told them to say, colleagues, you see, certainty, I'm counsel, but I'll tell you that this is a foregone issue. You know, it's a settled matter. The courts have already decided on this.
They've pronounced themselves. Precedents was said.
Yes. You know? So I was I was challenging the president actually the other day on radio to say, you see, if you feel this constitution has got a lacuna in any way, the best you can do, which is why we've given ourselves a constitution, by the way, the best you can do is to go to the constitutional court and get an interpretation of that provision from the constitutional court. From there, then the constitutional court will guide whether that particular provision requires refining of some sort or not. So I think there is need for integrity in the leadership. I feel our leadership lack serious levels of integrity
and patriotism. And you see, it also brings me back to what I was saying, that the problem we have really is that we have a leadership in place right now that doesn't love Zambia enough. I think it's the love of country that is lacking. That is why you get people to, you know, resorting to unholy means of just trying to maintain power. You know, when you get to any leader who gets to a point of wanting to hold power by all means is a danger unto himself or herself, number one, before they even become a danger to the rest of the nation. They are a danger to all of us, but more so to themselves than even, you know, they may be to us, because then they've reached a stage where they are ready to do anything just to keep that power.
And you know, on the part of patriotism and just having the love for the country. Look at it in this way. These colleagues were receiving aid, about $50 million worth of medicine from the American people, and they decided to steal that. Now, you see, when you are stealing that medicine, the people who are giving you the money, or should I say, those medications, come to you and tell you to say, gentlemen, you see, what you are doing, we are aware. We've done our investigations. Over 2,000 dispensaries and chemists or pharmacies have been checked, and we've seen that our medicine, the one that is supposed to be given for free, is being sold. Are you able to curb this? Now, first meeting, 2021, nothing is done. Second meeting, nothing is done. So now you can have a taste of the love that these colleagues have for the country. The love that they may have for the youth. Because, I mean, imagine today as we are talking, 3/4 of people living with HIV and AIDS are youths. Now, if 3/4 of these are youths, and 80% of, it should be 80 or 90% of ARVs that we have in Zambia that are distributed for free come from the American people, you know? And you have these people cutting down this funding. So for me, I will tell you that our leadership does not have the love for the country. Neither do they have the much intended or the much needed patriotism to be able to ensure that they put the country first. Because, I mean, you can't have 33, I think the ambassador mentioned 33. 33 meetings.
33 meetings.
Where someone is reminding you to say, colleagues, please do something about this. But you just decide to ignore. And then you come to the Zambian people, to the youths, and tell them to say, no, we need to amend the constitution because I want to work with you.
I want to work with you because I love you so much.
To begin with, there is a technical genocide that you have committed. Because for me, I call it technical genocide because the moment you cut down on the supply of ARVs, it's as good as putting these young ones.
Condemning people to death.
Yes, you are condemning them to death. And these are essential medicines.
Exactly.
So I don't think our colleagues have got love for the country. So because of that, I think there is need for the young people, especially the young ones, us ourselves. We need to really rethink the mindset of these people that are leading us.
Yeah.
We need to really look into them. We need to look at them and tell them the realities, to say, you guys are killers.
Exactly.
You don't love us. You don't have the best interest of the youth at heart.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, 33 meetings, and today you come up with a very...
no resolution.
Imagine, I was looking at those social media pictures where I saw them going to pharmacies, you know, to go and grab medicine and all that. I just said, the American embassy has actually even made a comment to say, why are you looking at the small fishes
In the big pond.
in a big pond?
Cut the sauce.
You've got hyenas that
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly, and you see even that it still shows you the level of people of you know, hate that they have for the country, that they have for Zambia and Zambians in particular, really, because you look at and hate extended to young people, because most of these pharmacies and chemists that are running in the compounds and in the residential areas are initiatives that young people have come up with. The same young people that they have failed to provide jobs for. They've gone out of their way to try and generate some capital and be able to run these little pharmacies and chemists and, you know, so that they could, at the end of the day, it's about making ends meet. But then, that is not where the problem is. I think that even when in the 33 meetings that they've had with the U.S. Embassy, the U.S. Embassy were not talking about a certain John who runs a pharmacy in Bauleni, you know, who runs a chemist at 10 miles in Katuba. You know, that's not who they have in mind. The problem is at the source.
Yeah.
Okay? The problem is at the source. So you get to start wondering, where's the pharmacovigilance that should be there? You know what I mean? Just at the beginning. The medicines are brought in. They are stored by Zamra or whoever, you know, and at the end of the day, they find themselves missing. We've had situations where containers of medicines have been discovered in people's private farms. You know what I mean? That's where the problem is. So going out to harass young people that are equally being scammed, because we're being sold medicine by these people, which medicine is not supposed to be sold to them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's not, I don't think that that's the issue that should be dealt with. The issue is deal with the source.
The actual
deal
thieves.
with the actual thieves.
You know, for me,
the young people are not there when the medicine is brought. You know what I mean?
It's extremely interesting to actually note that someone, I was making a comment the other day to someone to say, you see, I think going forward we should actually be referring to our colleagues in the UPND government as thieves. Then this person says, no, but you need to withdraw that. Why would you call them thieves? Someone is considered innocent before. I said, you see, the American embassy or the American people were giving the Zambian people $50 million.
Yeah.
Now, for them to decide to withdraw, this funding, it simply means that they have already discovered that these guys are stealing.
Yes, they know who is
stealing.
stealing.
They are thieves.
Exactly. They know the
So
thieves.
why should you try and massage the
reality?
tag? The reality is that these guys are thieves.
thieves.
They are stealing. That's the reason why the owners of the monies have decided to withdraw the money.
Exactly.
So I think they need to...
And a thief is a thief anyway. Whoever that gets something that doesn't belong to them and makes them theirs is a thief. There's no any other way you can use to describe
exactly the point. So I think it's an issue of just having the heart for the country, the levels of patriotism we need. I think going forward, even the leadership we are electing, I think we need to really assess the mindset, even those people, even just looking at the track records, you know.
Exactly, of people.
Because, I mean, realistically speaking, you know, at some point, Bowman Lusambo had warned Zambian to say, we're dealing with dealers, corrupt individuals. You know, these are dealers.
Exactly.
I've come to prove it that we're dealing with dealers
Serious
instead of
mafia style.
this is
And you see, it also brings me to another issue. I don't know if you've seen the American embassy or the American ambassador insists that this government has gotten, in excess to about 8 billion, US dollars that they've been given for development of various sectors. And the ambassador has it on strong authority or ground that the money given does not reflect the work on the ground. You know what I mean?
Very unfortunate.
It brings it all comes back to the same issue, of patriotism and love for country. Because remember, the PF is accused of having been thieves. They were getting loans to steal the money and all of that. But I mean, what PF did in the 10 years that they were in office, or what PF under President Edgar Lungu did in the 7 years, what PF under President Michael Sata did in 3 years, is there for all to see.
And you see,
the flyover bridges, the airports that we have, there's a district hospital in all the 156, in all the 116, districts. Some districts even have 2 district hospitals in them that are fully functional, operating. You know what I mean? All of that is development that came from the money that was borrowed. But our colleagues seem to keep borrowing, and there's nothing that is seen on the ground. The American embassy is highly concerned, and the concern is genuine. It's shared by even we, the local people. Because when you look at President Hakainde Hichilema, for instance, and by the way, in case people don't know, he has already started campaigning. If anyone else, if all of us are seated waiting for ECZ, it's just that we are well-cultured people. We follow procedure. But he has already started campaigning. He's the only one who is allowing himself to hold rallies in the country. He's holding rallies with no message.
And just on that one, comrade, like you said, holding rallies with no message. He's reached a point where he doesn't have any message now to give to the Zambian people.
He has nothing to say.
To the extent that an entire president has been reduced into being a clown.
Yeah.
Where you go in public, you start whistling.
And whistling in church, for that
you
matter.
start
what
whistling.
Kind of bad manners are those in church?
So I think we've reached a point where he doesn't have any message to give the Zambian people.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is, when you go on the ground today, I don't think there's anyone who would say anything good.
Exactly.
Anyone who would want to even say, I'll give this man my vote. I think people are actually, when someone makes that statement, they even indicate, they even say to say, God forbid.
Yeah.
Even if
they want to even beat you, they'll get you out of the bus. You know?
So I think it's an issue of message. There was so much that was promised to the Zambian people, stemming from the cost of living that it shall reduce at a very fast rate, to the fact that he promised would have fertilizer bought at a very cheap price. From the 500 it was to about 250. He had promised that we would be buying mealie meal at 50 kwacha. From the 170, is it 178 or 160 that it was, 120. He had promised that load shedding would be a thing of the past. In fact, he actually indicated that we should not blame drought.
It's poor leadership.
It's poor leadership. Now, you see, these are things. That's why I remember one time FTJ...
And he was equating us to Dubai. So you wonder now if it is now raining in Dubai. Because
that is
they
the
say
thing.
There's no rain in Dubai, but they have electricity.
We
still get rains here and we don't have power.
Very true. I remember one time FTJ, Frederick Chiluba, had guided, he was actually indicating that, you see, you need to be very careful with what you say today.
Exactly.
Because tomorrow you may be president of the republic. And what you say today is going to
reflect
to haunt you, to haunt you. And that is exactly what is happening. And we've got a lot of videos and recordings of the president telling the Zambian people, telling us that, within 7 months of being in power, will ensure that load shedding is a thing of the past. This is 4 years down the line.
It's gotten worse.
And it's gotten worse. He indicated to say there were middlemen getting money in the fuel supply chain. But what we have seen now is where there's so much selfishness to the extent one company captured the state.
Monopolize the entire
I actually call it, it's a state capture. You can't have, it's a state capture. where you capture the energy industry.
The
you can't
whole
have one
sector has been captured by one individual,
you
one
can't,
company.
you know, you can't. So that is a level of selfishness. Imagine, I call Malawi our 11th province. In Malawi, we are buying petrol at 16 kwacha.
Yeah.
You know, 16 kwacha.
16 kwacha.
And imagine it's Malawi. They don't even have as much resources as we do.
No, they don't. They don't even have the copper that we have.
They don't. But look at that. You know, in Zambia, we're buying at 32 because someone decided to capture the economy.
Exactly.
You get to wonder, what love does this person have for the country? I think for me, it actually gets more emotional.
Yeah.
When I look at the leadership, I say, okay, colleagues, I mean, the moment you are president of the republic, I don't think there's anything else you would want in life, because you will always have food on the table. What is the reason why? And I was actually telling my colleagues to say, the reason why, the realistic reason why any person would go for work, you wake up in the morning, you go for work, is because you want to ensure that you have bread and butter on the table. But now imagine you're a Republican president, you're an ambassador. It means everything will be provided for you. Why can't you use the opportunity you have? An opportunity given to you by God to ensure that you do things for the Zambian people. We're endowed with natural resources beyond human imagination, you know. And imagine today as we're talking, and I think we need a serious sanitization of our minds and just the minds of the leadership. If we were a serious nation today, did you know that we would have 80% of the mining industry owned by Zambians? I don't think, if we were a serious nation, I don't think we'd still have that colonial mentality of thinking it's only a Muzungu who can come and run the mines. Because today, when you go to the mines, the realistic thing is 98% of these mines are run by Zambians.
By Zambians. It's ours.
98% of the workforce.
The ones who are running them.
We are the ones, yes. Exactly. The 2% is now the management, the bourgeoisie, the ones who bring in the money.
The ones who bring in the money. They are not the ones down the pit.
I was amazed that we had to decide to give away Mopani for free. For me, I will tell you it was given away for free because there is no way someone comes to you with a promise. And on top of that, I mean, you decide, someone tells you to say $350 million or $400 million is what we'll pump in. And they bring in something very minimum, minute. You decide to give away 51% shareholding. That is a joke. It means you don't have a heart for the country. And on top of that, you even do it illegally. So for me, I feel
and extend tax holidays to the same.
I think we need genuine leadership. I think the people that are running this country today, now I believe, someone told me once that these are businessmen. Now I believe that they're actually real businessmen.
Very shady businessmen.
Shady businessmen, for that matter. And they don't have the best interest of the country at heart. They are serious capitalists. They want to, whatever they get from the country is I think for them it's good. But look at the common person on the ground is suffering, you know. On top of that, because a multinational organization is going to promise you, or has promised you to say, give us these mines, these resources, we'll bring in this much, and then ukariamu eshaso or ukaswamu eshaso. You find that the same people who were giving artisanal licenses to young miners on the copper belt, look at it in that. Copper belt, Chingola and all, Mumbwa, Mpika, artisanal mining licenses were given. But again, within a short space of time, they go back and start chasing them and telling them to say they're illegal miners. But these are people with artisanal mining licenses.
You gave to them.
You gave them.
Exactly.
You told them to form cooperatives. Now, because someone has come to tell you, say, no.
Better go something.
Yeah, and on top of that, not only that, they say we are going to bring in an investment of billions. They even mention those billions. But the reality is, if you are going to have an artisanal mining agent or a person or a license receiving 10,000 kwacha, the reality is this 10,000 kwacha is going to stay in the country.
Exactly.
But for a person who's going to bring in an investment of $5 billion and they get $2 million or $3 million on a month, this money is profit. It will be expropriated, externalized, I mean.
Exactly.
So this will not stay in Zambia. It will go to Australia, it will go to Belgium, it will go to France.
To advance the economy of those countries,
yes.
not our own economy here.
And that is why, for me, I feel in the mining industry, we need to refine our minds. We need to have a Zambianization kind of process, where we know to say, if artisanal miners in Mumbwa who are dealing in gold will get the gold and sell locally, that money will stay in the country. But if you are going to give a multinational, you definitely know to say this money is going out. You'll not have. So I think,
take it out.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but for me, I feel our leaders have got misplaced priorities. They are not patriotic. They don't care about us. They do not care about us.
No,
I think
they certainly don't.
I think this is a point where now Abraham Lincoln will tell the nation to say, think not of what the country can do for you,
but think what you will do for your country.
What you will do for your country. Because for me, I think if this nation or the leaders in this country were really serious leaders, we wouldn't be where we are. Gold, we've got in abundance. Copper, we've got in abundance. Emeralds, we've got in abundance. Sugilite, we've got lithium, we've got in abundance. But why are we still poor? And the reason is simple, because we've got a selfish leadership. Businessmen who think it's just them.
Has created a small cluster of businessmen as the ones to benefit from what is meant for all of us. And I think that at some point we need to come to a stage where we the people get to decide what what the wealth of our country gets to do for our country. Because I don't think that the wealth that is in Chile or the copper that they have in Chile is what we should use to develop our country here.
No.
There's the mineral resources that Zambia has should be the ones to build Zambia. You know? And I think that was what the likes of President Edgar Lungu had in mind when they were
even Kaunda,
when they were dealing with the issues of Mopani and KCM.
Exactly.
But our friends who seem to think to know a lot of things came and began to reverse those things, give back the mine to Vedanta who has no money. That's a broke investor, that has no money, who's running lawsuits everywhere else in the world, you know what I mean, because of failure to invest as pronounced. You do all of these things, that don't build the country, all of these things that only seek to destroy the country. I remember not long ago, ZRA had issued a statement where they indicated that only 7 actually, out of the 499 mines that were active in 2024 paid taxes. Only 9. Out of 400.
It's really sad,
that are operating, digging out our mineral resources and taking it wherever, but only 7 of them were paying taxes. And those that are in government sit pretty and think that this is okay, that there's no problem. Because it appears, if they are existing, they are operating, they are not paying taxes to ZRA. They are definitely paying it to somebody else's pocket.
Exactly.
There's certainly somebody who's unpatriotic enough to go there and collect those taxes on our behalf for themselves.
We really need, as a nation, we really need to be having honest conversations around these issues. Look at it in this way. Imagine Zambia is the world's largest exporter of emeralds. And yet we cannot brag of having even 2 grams of emeralds in a reserve. We don't have any reserves of emeralds. No. But we brag today as being the largest exporters of the same resource in the world, not in Africa or in sub-Saharan region, no, in the whole world. imagine today we do not have even one, and these are ideas now, we're giving our colleagues now. These are ideas that going forward we need to be thinking of and ensuring that we have these things.
Yeah.
Imagine today if we had copper reserves. We've been digging holes on the copper belt and everywhere else for so long.
Yeah.
But imagine we don't even have 1 ton of copper
reserved somewhere.
Reserved.
Yeah.
We started galvanizing gold using Zambia gold in 2019, 2020.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our colleagues, the moment they got into government, they decided to stop the process of purchasing gold. Now, you know what that meant? The plan that we had was eventually we should have enough gold to be able to sustain our debt with the gold that we'll have. But what happened is the moment they did that, we went back to over-dependence on the dollar because all our debts are in US dollar. USD. So there you cripple your economy.
Exactly.
So it's something that, you know, we need genuine leadership. If we're going to look at the proper economics, we should be able to know that the more gold you have in your reserves, the better the economy is going to be.
Exactly.
Because the better you will secure your debts and the interests of the country.
Yeah.
So imagine today, the gold reserves we have are not something you can look at and really think we are benefiting much.
Exactly.
So, and not only that, when you look at minerals such as lithium, we've got a president who went to the US bragging to say, no, this lithium, that.
He went to China
but
also.
Today, as we are talking, the lithium in Zambia, you know that no one has got an active mining license in lithium.
There's no one,
Nobody.
Yeah.
But
Even
this is
went to China and signed deals there.
This is a resource that the Zambian people can benefit from. Zimbabwe is making a lot of money from their lithium.
Exactly.
A lot of money, because small-scale miners are actually making money. The economy of Zimbabwe, you not believe that the economy of Zimbabwe is growing to that level that
exactly
really
exponentially growing. And,
man.
And you see, I was actually telling somebody, I was sharing with somebody who still thinks that Zimbabwe is the Zimbabwe we used to be told of 10 years ago, where people tell you need to go with a suitcase of cash to go and buy a loaf of bread.
No, it's definitely different.
The Zimbabwean economy is doing far much better than ours. Zimbabweans are living by far better than Zambians. You know, Zimbabwe is able to produce its own fertilizer now. You know, they've nearly stopped fertilizer imports. They've created plants and industries there that are producing fertilizer. You know, Emerson Mnangagwa is doing wonders to improve the Zimbabwean economy. Their agricultural sector is growing. Here, where we have a president who is alleged to be a farmer. Because now I call it an allegation. It's a mere allegation because there's nothing, that proves that to be a fact. You know what I mean? Because for you to qualify for something, it needs to be proven with fact. If you say you're a farmer, you must run the agriculture sector better than anybody else because that's your field.
Very true.
You know, that's your field. It's like going to appoint Elijah Mchima, whom I don't know is doctor of I don't know what, they call him doctor now, as Minister of Health, and you expect him to run the Ministry of Health effectively. Same thing as appointing Sylvia Masebo to run the Ministry of Health and expect her to run the Ministry of Health effectively. It all failed. Because there's no expertise in that particular area or field that you've put those people to work. So we have a farmer who's apparently not running the agriculture sector as it should be run. We've seen them going around now boasting. As of yesterday, I saw even posted on his page the 3-point-something
bumper harvest.
Bumper harvest.
But he should be able to reflect.
All of it is no thanks to him. Even that 3-point-something, metric tons of maize that is predicted. It's a prediction, by the way. It could be wrong. It could go wrong. A field could catch fire.
And you see, the reality again is, in as much as you would want to say, no, government, there's nothing that government has done to
enable that harvest.
You
know what I mean?
The reality is there was a bit of some rain.
Exactly.
And these guys did not even distribute input the way you're supposed to distribute.
Exactly.
People were getting inputs in medas.
Yes.
You can't even have that meda for one lima.
Exactly.
And I only hope, in fact, on the same issue of the maize, I only hope that the price the floor price by FRA will be the same price as we decided to import the maize that we exported. Because you see, it's going to be very laughable that our own maize, we exported that maize and decided to re-import that maize at a price which is above by 48%. Now, 48% we've got farmers in Zambia. I only hope that the floor price by FRA is going to be the same as the one we imported that maize from Tanzania, because it's going to be a serious insult to our farmers if we don't. In 2020, the government of Zambia came up with an economic recovery plan. Now, that economic recovery plan included the fact that we needed to diversify our agriculture system by ensuring that we have other crops of interest, by ensuring that we go the way of irrigation. Now, that process started in 2020. Now, our colleagues, the moment they got into power, immediately they decided to throw that economic recovery plan. Do you know that if we had decided to continue with that economic recovery plan, we wouldn't have had any shortage of maize. We would have had the price of mealie meal to an even lower price. That is the reality. The price of petrol fuel would have been lower. Much lower, because that was a well-crafted economic recovery plan by civil servants who are technocrats, not by politicians. Not it was a proper plan. But I think because our colleagues really take politics to be, because President Hakainde has been in campaign mode from day one of 2021.
He has never rested.
He's never rested. And I think
because anyone is giving him any cause to not rest, but he has just decided that he will politic his way through.
Everything is politics. You can't politic from day one to.
No.
And I was actually telling someone to say, in fact, it was very funny. I said, in fact, the takwa running the chalo kunganda.
Hey,
so it was going to be much better if he was in an environment which gives the work vibe,
Exactly.
I think he would have been more patriotic. We need to really, there's a test of patriotism we need to have on President Hakainde. I don't feel he's as patriotic as every Zambian would want to see.
No, he's you see, I was telling somebody, I was saying, look, the problem is that he doesn't love the country. It's about him. It's a me situation. You know what I mean? It's always about, I have done this, I have done that.
By the way, he made a comment yesterday.
I'm the first one to do that.
By the way, he made a comment yesterday that he's got the keys.
Exactly.
Is it the keys to power in this country? And he's not going to let go of it. No one is going
to allow him to be unlocked out of it.
But I think he has to be reminded. I think the president has to be reminded that the power, the keys to power in this country is actually in the hands of the Zambians.
People.
It's in the hands of the people. And that is why in 2021, that key was given to him by the Zambian people with an over 1 million votes, satisfying victory, which of course came from the Zambian people. So he must be reminded the key to power is with the Zambian people. So it is the Zambian people that hold that key. And at any time,
they can withdraw
they wish they can withdraw that key. And I feel in 2026, where we are today, I think in 2026, I don't think it's going to have
withdrawn.
That key shall definitely be withdrawn.
It will be, and you see, there's no amount of holding it, even if you lock it inside your pocket. They will still get there and remove that key.
In fact, even where you decide to swallow it, the Zambian people will decide to get a spare key.
Exactly.
At some point, he made a comment to say, I think he was being asked to say, Mr. President, you're saying these people will come and replace. He said, no, but you see, even if you decide to keep that chair, we will tell you it's okay, fine, But realistically speaking, I think we need to really speak to these issues of integrity, issues of transparency, issues of accountability, issues of just patriotism.
Exactly.
These four are key. Going forward, as we're looking at the leadership, these four are very key. Because there is no way a president or a government will come and tell you to say, there's something we are doing in the background. For me, if a leader is going to tell you that there's something I'm doing in the background,
that's not a sincere leader.
It simply means that they don't even know what they're doing. Because leadership or governance of a country is a process that requires that there is proper transparency, accountability, and just the issue of integrity.
Once you begin to say you are doing something in the background,
which
then you're not doing
Bwana?
anything. Because unfortunately for you, when you're a leader of a nation, you do not have the privilege of doing things in the background.
You don't.
You do not.
You don't.
Everything you do must be transparent. The
Nothing
citizens,
should be secretive.
it must be an inclusive process. Everybody should know what is going on in their country. You can't come to me and tell me that, no, I go to my kitchen in my house, I'm trying to find food. I can only, smell something, but I can't see the food. I ask my cook, and my cook tells me, no, boss, don't worry. I'm cooking somewhere. And you expect me to sit comfortably and say, the person knows what they're doing. Because you see, even the statement that he's quoted to have made yesterday, that he holds the keys and no one will lock him out of, will get those keys and lock him out of the presidency, is only shows the level of arrogance that he has. And really, if there's anybody who should have really learned from others what arrogance can do to a president and the entire brigade in Zambia, it is him.
Exactly, because you remember there was a statement that was made by President Lungu once, which was criticized by everyone, where he said, I will hand over power to myself. That, and I'm glad President Lungu realized that that was a statement that somehow came out in a very arrogant manner. That statement, the Zambian people said, you hand over to yourself, tukakumona. And this is the same thing.
Exactly.
Someone telling you to say, no, I'm holding the keys to power. No one will say, Wana, tukamimona.
Whether you hold the keys, you can put the keys in your shoes, people will still remove them. And get you out of there. Because you see, at the end of the day, what he needs to understand is that he's not in office based on his own wisdom. He's not in office because of his own wisdom or his own power. If he thinks he's too powerful and he's put himself there, no. Like we said in the beginning, that he's a benefactor of a protest. Zambians decided to protest against we that were in the patriotic front as a government at the time. They decided to protest against us and they removed us. They simply just benched us because probably they also wanted to try. Also, some of these things are divine interventions where you try so much, you cry so much, and God decides to say, okay, walira sana limbi anna abantu bamubalemuna kwati
mwana galira bonzo
mpase ntione and then chamukanga manje amboziruma then it now starts to say I hold the keys, because you see there's only one way that Zambians change government, and it's through a vote. It's through a vote. And in that ballot box, it's not one man who votes on behalf of all of us. We all go there and make a decision to either keep you or remove you. And right now, my gut feeling is that he knows how unpopular he has become. He has been told of how he is going to be removed from office next year. So he has embarked on this. Remember, UPND, these guys, HH and UPND, are a bunch of propagandists, really. They are masters of propaganda. They literally formed government based on propaganda. The people turned against the PF mostly based on propaganda. The things that were said to have been done by those of us in PF during the time that we were in power, that even we would even wonder to say, okay, couldn't I machika? You know what I mean? Because our colleagues crafted their propaganda so well, and it was very sellable. But then, unfortunately, that might have worked for them because they were in opposition. Now that they're in government, I don't think that you can stay in power using propaganda. It's not necessary. It's not possible.
Besides,
really,
you know,
people can see right through you as you are telling these lies, as you are saying you hold the keys to power.
Besides, no amount. In fact, I'll repeat what he said once upon a time. No amount of propaganda can be used to fake the economy, because we are seeing, we are feeling it.
We're feeling it.
You cannot go out there and tell the Zambian people to say, I have achieved 70% of my promises. Bwana, Zambian people are saying, you want to propagate that 70%. Your people in the first place told you that, no, Bwana, you've actually done 90%.
Then you go and argue and says, no, I've only done 70%.
That is a clear show that the president is being lied to.
Exactly.
Right now, him and his people are living in a bubble of their own imagination.
Exactly.
So it is extremely important that I think they must realize that they should poke that bubble of that imagination and come out to visualize the reality. You know, they need to have a clear view of the reality. Things are not good. The Zambian people are suffering. People are not able to have 3 clear meals. You know, we can have 3 clear meals because things are tough.
Exactly.
The kwacha does not have the value that it used to have. And there's no amount of propaganda that can actually sugarcoat or cheat the status of the economy. It's not possible. We are feeling it. We're seeing it every day. And they need to come out of that imaginary lifestyle, you know. It's important for them to
Exactly.
they need to
they need to come back to earth.
They need to come back to earth, because I mean, if you enjoying taxpayers' money, the fuel is given to you at a free for free, the food is given to you for free, and you come to a point, the maid is paid, everything is for free.
Yeah, even the one who brings mabis from Naminwe farm is paid for free.
Yes.
You don't pay them.
So you find that now you don't really know the hardships of the people. But the reality is things are bad.
Exactly.
They are worse to the highest levels, worse than we were 4 years ago, by far. It would have been better if we only moved at least even 10% of being worse, but things are worse. Salaries have not been increased for people because you know businesses are dying. You know that right now as we're talking, it's only last month. When was July? Yeah, it's only last month when the processing plants that deal with silicomanganese or manganese in Mukushi area, Serenje area. It's only last month that we were given about 10 kilowatts, is it 10 megawatts of power. As of July last year,
they've been shut down.
So that simply means that the employment rate in that area was about 2,500 employees who lost. These are direct jobs. They lost employment. They lost job. Now, when you look at 2,500, you multiply that by 5. Because these people are keeping at least a barest minimum, a family of 5.
5 people,
So that is how many people have been affected with that load shedding issue, with the power situation. And you are out there selling power to Namibia. Imagine, I was in Kawambwa, and I'm being told by people in Wapula to say, no, actually, when you cross over in Congo, there is power. 24/7. But here, there's no power. But that's where the power comes from. We're selling.
Comes from here.
The other time, I'm in Kazungula, I'm being told to say, no, when you cross over into Namibia, there is power 24/7. But where the power is coming from here in Zambia,
there's no power.
There's no power. I go like, okay.
The other side of the border control is run by a generator. You know,
and I go like, God, what kind of leadership do we have?
What did we do?
What did we do to deserve this, you know? People will come with the number, will come to say, because there is no way we can have individuals without the heart for the Zambian people. But you see, where we've reached, if I were president if I were the president today, with the way things are moving, I think I would have resigned.
Exactly. That's the moral thing.
On moral ground. It's a moral thing to do, because there's no way you can subject your people to such kind of treatment.
Exactly.
And yet you still want to hold on to that key of authority. It's, I think for me, I feel it's a bit immoral. The moral thing to do would be to resign. You just let someone else take over, you know?
Yeah.
And that is why I always base issues to do with leadership on integrity.
Exactly.
The integrity levels of our colonizers, I call them colonizers because, I mean, the British are our colonizers. The integrity levels of our colonizers is actually very high. Because in Britain, with this scandal for medicine, for example, you would have seen the Minister of Agriculture, Minister of
Prime
Health
Minister himself
resigning, the Prime Minister resigning. Immediately, imagine there was someone, was it in Britain or in the US? There's someone who had gone late to a meeting in the National Assembly.
Actually in Britain.
In Britain. Gone late for 2 minutes. The person just said, I'm very sorry, I resign.
The right integrity to hold the office.
That is the thing. That is the level of integrity we need, you know? But at this level, I think Zambians really need to assess this leadership. And we need to, it's not necessary. Why should we continue to be lied to in this manner? You know, we only have one Zambia. We only have one Zambia. My kids are always asking me to say, Daddy, but why is it that fuel is expensive like that? And I go like, okay.
And these are young children who equally understand that things are not okay.
It's bad, you know. It's extremely bad. But I mean, that is where we are. We could only pray to God, you know. I believe leadership comes from God. Even President Hagainde was actually given to us by God.
Now, sometimes God will test you as a people. They want to test your level of faith, and you know the level of faith that you have in Him, your level of patience. And I think that so far we have done well to endure, you know, the kind of hardships that we've endured. And I think that God, being the one who gives leadership, will definitely ensure that that key is given to the right person. Sometimes even the wrong people are brought into our lives just so we could learn a lesson or two, you know, because remember, this is a gentleman who cried day and night that he was not given an opportunity to lead, you know, to the extent of it becoming even a tribal issue, you know, that they hate me because I'm from this tribe and all of that. And now it's like God has systematically just said, okay, you lead, let the people see why, the reason why the past 6 times you've been failing. You know, I think that now that reason has been presented forth and it's been felt by the Zambian people. Going forward, really, I was having a conversation with someone and I was telling them, and they were seemingly his supporter, you know. So I was telling them, on what basis do you really think that your president will make it in 2026? On what basis? On what grounds? Because for you to be able to be re-elected, it's different when you've just been in the opposition singing PF is bad, is corrupt, in Wakawalala and everything, cadres, this and that. It's very different for when you're in office. Because now you're in office, you've been given the opportunity to do the correct thing. You even just at a personal level, comrade, you can't have somebody, say for instance, somebody has stolen something from you. You tell me, comrade, they've stolen from me. I sympathize with you. Tomorrow when I see you, again, I should ask you, so they stole from you. It ends there. The next day I say the same thing without providing a solution, because what this guy has simply been doing is telling us the same things that he used to tell us when he was in opposition. PF is corrupt, PF is this, PF is that. That is why every little thing that they have done, you know, where they have failed to provide leadership, they have always come back to say, PF did this, PF did that, which has basically, for me, translated into an insult on the intelligence of those that decided that they should change government. You know what I mean?
True.
Because people change government not just because they want to change, but because there's something that they have seen that is not being done right. that needs to be done correctly. So if they put you in a position to do things right and then you fail, you go back to the same people that, no, but those ones used to fail, so why are you complaining that I am failing? Then you should not have been a leader to start with.
In the first place,
I mean, you should not have been there to start with.
Remember, he told the Zambian people that I'm coming to fix it.
Yeah.
If you are going to fix something, you can't continue talking about the person who broke it.
Yeah.
You can't.
Exactly.
It should never be the topic, if anything. You know, if you want to fix something, you need to be able to fix it.
Exactly.
You tell someone to say, I'm going to fix this, fix it, Bwana.
Yeah.
You are given a mandate now.
Yeah.
And you see, just coming to the issue of unity of purpose, I felt extremely bad that we have reached a point in this country where we could even have political convictions on the premise of a person reminding you that tribalism has become worse.
Exactly.
Now, we've reached a point where if someone is going to talk about tribalism, for example, and pointing it out, this person becomes a tribalist. But you who decides to practice it, you are an angel, you know. So I've had this issue. For me, I felt extremely bad. I've gone back to the history books and said, why is it that, why have we reached here? Exactly. Then it took me to a point where Kaunda decided that we are one Zambia and one nation. Yeah. That motto should be able to build us. Yeah. We are one people, you know, and that is why I'm sure you've observed that I have been now going forward using the motto that Mukandila Navako 73. Yeah. Because I've come to realize that we are 73 ethnic groupings in this country, and we need to live as one. Exactly. You know, when I was growing up in Matero, we would go and play soccer, you know, Patriotism ground, but we were playing with Impombo and all. I would never know the tribe that my friends were coming from.
Exactly.
It was never there.
It was not an
and I've just come to realize that actually this issue of tribe is very prominent from those old people that exist today, you know.
Exactly.
Well, just look at it. It's actually extremely prominent from those ones.
We don't.
For us, our generation, we don't care about that.
We don't care about it, you know.
Yeah, we don't care about that.
The first thing I want to know when I meet somebody is not their tribe.
Exactly.
Really, it doesn't even cross my mind.
Yeah, so really and truly, we need to get to a point where we believe now that apart from us realizing that we're 73 ethnic groupings in Zambia who have to live together as one, we also have to get back to a point where we start respecting the culture and the traditional leadership. Imagine today, I was very perplexed to see that on the page that we know is synonymous to State House, is it Causeway?
Yes.
These colleagues decided to insult our chief, Mwata. You know, they insulted Mwata to the fullest extent that you would even see that we've lost our culture. But this is another thing we need to talk about. We need to start respecting the traditional leadership in this country. Because you see, for me, before I can be PF, before I can be Tonse, I am Ushi. Exactly. And I've got a traditional leader that I have to respect.
Exactly. You come from somewhere.
I come from somewhere.
You
know, so where we've reached is a point where we need to really re-examine our cultural norms, our morality, our moral values, and just understand that it has to start from somewhere. Exactly. If a leadership does not put its foot on the ground and cane those that are erring in that respect, I think therein lies a problem, because it means it comes from the leadership itself.
It's complacency.
That level of hate. Yeah, so I think we need to also speak to this. We should be having genuine conversations.
You see, even when we were growing up, comrade, you do something as a young person. You're just a small boy. What you do reflects on your parents. Okay? They would always throw comments. Those of us who grew up in the village, they will tell you, you know, he can behave like that. Because the way, like you said, Causeway, Watchdog, and all of that, everybody knows. You know, the genesis, we all know the genesis, we all know where they broadcast from, you know what I mean? And we all know who's paying for that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's a situation that really just reflects on the entire leadership. Okay, it reflects on the entire leadership, and I forget that you may fool some people sometimes, but not everybody. You know, because some people know the real you. They know who is doing what and who has been up to this thing. They've taken an onslaught on Mwata, and this has been ongoing. It's not just the recent attack that they've made. They've been attacking him left, right, and center from the time he gave a position, you know. And as a leader, you can't expect him to be in bed with those that are causing terror on his people. His number one obligation is to the people in his kingdom, you know. Those are his people. Those are his children. So if any of his children are being mistreated, he has every right to respond. He has every right to protect his children, like any parent should, you know. We saw a situation in here, comrade, when Mr. Hakainde was in opposition. There were certain chiefs who never wanted to relate with President Edgar Lungu, the entire PF government, they never wanted to relate because they had taken a position that Mr. Hakainde was their son and they were going to stand with him. So why is it okay for certain traditional leaders to stand with one individual and then others should not stand with their own children? When the others stand with their own children, you lead an onslaught against them and call them names. I think that all in all, it comes back to an issue of morality, of how you were raised as a leader, of how you were brought up. I think these things also reflect on the future. Even as it's a lesson to all of us as parents. Even as we are raising our children now, we should ensure that we inculcate good morals in them, because what we allow them to do today might be a problem for them in future, because they might not be able to relate with fellow human beings as they should relate. You know, you talked about issues of, you know, where we've seen convictions of people, convictions of members of parliament, elected members of parliament, who are simply being convicted and being sent to jail by constituencies being taken from them for merely exercising their freedoms and rights, you know, as enshrined in our constitution. You know, people are free to express themselves in this country. That's what we have always known. But it appears it's a problem when you have a leadership that is so bad and has failed lamentably, you know, to perform its functions and, of course, fulfill its campaign promises. So anything that looks like a reminding factor to the promises you made, to them, it culminates into a crime. And I think that this is a situation that we as a people in 2026 have got an opportunity to correct. We have an opportunity to correct, especially those of us that are young people. You know, you can't have somebody just come and begin to close the social media space for us. We are in this digital age, you know, where social media is the order of the day. So you can't really just come and decide that you are going to put caveats on how people should utilize social media.
That should never be allowed. It
should never be a conversation that we should have.
That should never be allowed. And I think going forward, we're going into an election year, 2026. We should be able, for me, my take is we should be able to give power back to the people.
Exactly.
We need to give power back to the people. Mm-hmm. There is no way we can continue having a leadership concentrated on one figurehead. Exactly. A president is not a god for crying out loud. No. We give power to a president as a people. We vote for this individual. This individual comes to us to beg for those votes. During an election year. You know, so we should not reach a point where we feel this person has become so powerful, the Alpha and Omega, that at a snap of a finger, things begin to tremble. I think we need to give power back to the people. It's extremely important, and that is where we need to get to now. And it's up to us as the people. And I've told people to say, I think these colleagues have gotten so much money in the system, and to the extent that they've become so wealthy. But if they're going to bring that money and give us, let's get that money.
It's our money.
Now it's Donch Kuweba Reloaded Promax. We get the money and ensure that we vote them out. We replace them. We give power back to the people. I think that is my stance going forward.
Exactly. And that's a correct stance, really, that we must all adopt, especially those of us that are young people, you know what I mean? Because we formulate the highest percentage, you know, in terms of population in Zambia. We are 70+%, the overall population, we as young people. So we need to really rise and begin to make these decisions and begin to ensure that we fight. I mean, another 5 years of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, really, I don't see any one of us surviving. I don't see any one of us surviving. He's going to mess this country up so bad that after another 5 years, if it ever gets to happen,
God forbid
it, you know what I mean? It will be very, very unattractive for anyone to even want to become president of Zambia. The kind of damage, the amount of damage that this gentleman has potential to do. So the power to stop him lies in all of us, more so we the young people.
Exactly. And we are in the majority.
We're in the majority. Why should the minority be the ones to always rule over the majority? I mean, the process of democracy defines itself. The minority may have their say, but the majority should rule. So we must move to a time where young people should be able to decide the kind of fate that we should have.
Exactly.
Yeah.